Hey, what's up? I'm gonna show you real quick an example of African history hidden in the Bible. Now, first I want you to see the map here. And you see how you have a river that parts and become 4 river heads here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it also parts here in the delta and become 4 river heads. 1, 2, 3, 4. However you look at it. So in Genesis 2, where it says, in Genesis 2:10, where it says, "And the river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became 4 river heads." You see where I'm getting at? It departed and became 4 river heads. The name of the first is Pishon. That is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. So Havilah has a whole land, and it's gold there. And the gold of the land is good. So they mentioned gold twice. And it's closely related to good, only off by a L. And also, like I said, you have compasses used twice for these rivers. All right. So, and the gold of the land is good. There is bdellium and onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is the Greek word for Kush. So when you talk about the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning, the end, we're in the beginning. We see Greek influence changing up the language, the beginning and the first and the last. This is the first chapter, Genesis, the first book. The last is the Revelations. And so what we're going to do is show you the link between the beginning and the end through the tree of life and the river of life. But because the river of life is in Africa, because it's in the land of Africa, it's not going to be named. But here we know Mesopotamia, and this is the Euphrates here, the Euphrates River here, that connects Assyria and lower Mesopotamia, which was where Abram come from, and Babylonia, up through the Fertile Crescent, down into the coastlands, down into Kemet, down the Nile Valley into the area of Havilah, and then you come into the ports of Kush. So the reason why Havilah is mentioned first is because it is nearest to Egypt. And so, prove all things. Well, before we go that far, let's complete this here. Okay, it says the name of the third river is Hiddekel. Look at the word Hiddekel and see how it's spelled, just like hidden. Only difference is the K-E-L. All right, but it's you see the word hide in there and the word hidden. This is the one which goes towards the east of Assyria. Towards the east of Assyria. All right, it is the one that goeth towards the east of Assyria. So if the first two rivers encompasses, you got Havilah, you have Kush. All right, and the rivers encompasses means that it goes around. It goes around these Havilah and Kush. All right, and part and become 4 river heads. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the third river is Hiddekel. It's the one which goes towards the east of Assyria. So what other river fits that description? Okay, but because it's in Africa, they're going to only give you descriptions as opposed to spelling it out, because they'll spell out the Euphrates, and the fourth river is Euphrates. And so we know what the Euphrates is a river of southwestern Asia, right, as in Caucasian Asia, that rises in the mountains of eastern Turkey and flows for about 1,700 miles through Syria and Iraq to join the Tigris River to form the Shat al-Arab Waterway. So what are we talking about here? Is a waterway. And you see it in the definitions. Now, and the Lord took the man and put him in the garden of Eden to dress and keep it. Why? Because there was no man to till the ground, right? So the whole purpose of this is to solve the two problems of the going into chapter 2. Chapter 2, every plant of the field, all right? There was no rain. The Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. So these are two agricultural problems. Once you partition the land to create a field, right, the herbs of the field, right, before it grew, right, the Lord God was not able to cause it to rain. God is, but this Lord is a master of the earth. He cannot cause it to rain. But there was a mist that went up from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. So, in other words, the ground was watered by the river. And he formed the man of the dust. Form means to shape and configured, right? The visible shape or configure, as in making a sheep from a mouflon. Whereas here you see God created and made. God created, meaning bringing something into existence, right? He created man in Genesis 1:27, right? In his image, he created him, male and female, he created them, right? And the point here is to identify the region, the geography, and the setting of Genesis, where Adam came from, you know, where we're talking about, and why the African aspect of it is being hidden. Hideko. So we could, to add more prove all things, you can go to Genesis 25, and you go down where this is the chapter where we meet Keturah, Abram's third wife, which is very seldom talked about. She bore him 6 sons, right? So we don't really talk about Abraham's 6 sons with Keturah. We only talk about Abram's 2 sons, his firstborn with Hagar, the Egyptian bondservant, and Sarah, his first wife, right? So this is his third wife, Keturah, and we know that their kindreds, Keturah and Hagar, they dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt, as you go to Assyria. All right, so it tells you that Havilah, as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt, as you go towards Assur. So Havilah, as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt, as you go towards Assyria. So to even get a little bit better description, we can go to the KJV, and it's a little bit more plain and simple to understand. 18, where it says, and they dwelt from Havilah unto Shur, that is before Egypt. So before Egypt, as thou goest towards Assyria. So before Egypt, as you go towards Assyria. Now you see how in the New King James and the KJV, King James, the words have been altered to confuse the African-centric or African location of Havilah. And there's more effort to that. But you see here in the KJV, in the more original, Havilah unto shore is before Egypt as you go towards Assyria. So here would be Egypt. So this is the reason why I put Havilah about here as you go towards Assyria. All right, Havilah. And the reason why Havilah is mentioned first is because the Bible writer, the narrator, is coming down the Nile. He enters Havilah first, and then he find gold, bdellium, onyx stone, and then he enters into the land of Kush. But biblically, we know that Havilah is the son of Kush. Right? Havilah is the son of Kush. The sons of Kush were Seba, Havilah, Sapta, Rama, and Sabteka. All right, the sons of Rama were Seba and Dedan. So we know where Sheba and Dedan and Eden and the Sudan is. We know these regions based off of the descriptions here. Now, you see that these were the sons of Cush as opposed to Cush who begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord came down and got involved. So before the Lord's came down and renamed it. It was called Sahu. And the pyramids are aligned with this star constellation, Sahu, but we don't know because we don't see things from the African perspective. But we see the pyramids are aligned with Orion's belt, and Orion is the Greek deity who was a mighty hunter, like Nimrod. All right. But that's stories for others' days, but it's very important because it's extremely important because it's about the towers. And we'll go into that in another story. You see, is the Lord. Before the Lord, now the Lord came down and he seen and confused the language and scattered them abroad. But the narrative of this story has been misconstrued, because we were given it from people who don't want us to know the African perspective. And so we'll go through that in the next lesson. But for this lesson is to show you Havilah is the offspring of Cush. And so this is part of the reason why there's confusion, is to change up the names so that you don't recognize that. You have Cush, then Mizraim, which is the Aramaic and Hebraic name for the land of Egypt, or we would call it Kemet, because before it was given the name Egypt, it was called Kemet. All right. And then so you have Cush, Kemet, Punt, right? And you have Canaan. So when you look at all of that on the map, right, it's very clear about who we are dealing with, right? Who we are talking about. Here we go. We see Cush, Punt. Now we know that Punt and Cush and Kerma and Kemet and Canaan are all Nile River Valley kingdoms. So this is the connection of the family here: Kush, Kemet, Punt, and Canaan. And the sons of Kush were Seba, Havilah, Septa, Rama, Septeka. So you see the sons of Kush, Havilah is the son of Kush. So the reason why they entered Kush, the only reason why they came through Havilah is because you had to get through Havilah first from Kush, because the African descendants is from this perspective. This is the reason why this is called Lower Egypt, Upper Egypt, or Lower Kemet, Upper Kemet, Lower, Lower and Upper Kush. So the perspective of the African has been taken out of context and misconstrued. And so you'll also see Havilah taken, and also I think Sheba later on in the chapters, right, by Joktan. Let's see. Havilah here and Sheba were begotten. All right. Joktan begot these characters because it's like being captured or adopted. Okay. He begot, right? Just like it was established that there's a difference between Cush, who begot Nimrod, and the sons of Cush. Okay. So Havilah is the son of Cush, but he was later begotten and included in the household of Joktan. Joktan begot. So there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of confusion, specifically starting with Seth. And that's another African deity. And we'll explore more of that. But when Seth was born, right, it specifically says in Genesis 4 at the end that at that point, then men begin to call upon the name of the Lord, named after Seth. The name of the Lord, named after Seth. So in the next chapter, in the book of the genealogy of Adam, it starts with Genesis 1:27. Then it tells you that Adam lived 130 years. And he ended up living a total of 930 years. And you see that the son that is named, and it says begot a son in his own likeness, after his image and the name, and he named him Seth. After he begot Seth, now you don't see Adam's other sons being recognized, right? You don't see Cain nor Abel being recognized, because Seth lineage comes in, and Seth is what Seth is, the god of disorder, confusion, right? Having to do with the deity who slain his brother for the throne and went to war with Heru, right? So these notes have been taken and used on purpose, because now you'll see Canaan is being used, and then you'll see the names of the sons of Cain being meshed in, and then you'll end up with actual the guys, Enoch. We're talking about Enoch. This is the son of Cain. This is not the son of Seth. And then Lamech. These are the sons of Cain. See, if you go to Cain, before Seth is born, you see Lamech. He had two wives, Adon, Zillah, the first two women named after Eve. One spelled almost exactly like Adam, Adah, and Zillah, because Lamech was a killer. Two men, one for wounding him, a young man for hurting him. But he said, if kings shall be avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. And therefore he lived to be 777 years. So we know Lamech is the same guy through looking close at the scriptures. But the Lord had cursed what God had blessed. And this is the reason why you'll see the separation between the Lord and God. Enoch walked with God, for he was not. For God took him. So Enoch was taken, just like the Lord walked with God. Adam was taken, right? Noah. So men can walk with God and also serve the purpose at times of the Lord. Noah was able to find favor in both. Other stories for other days. But this is an example. This is a deity from Africa. Atum is a deity from Africa. Amen is a deity from Africa. And the most important of it all is the serpent, right? Which is Wajet, the goddess, the serpent goddess. Wajet, or the Uraeus that adorn the Kemetic kings and queens and gods and goddesses, the crowns in the area of the sacred chakra, the crown chakra. And inside the belly of the serpent is the sun, which is a metaphor from the sun coming from the womb of the woman. The son being born from the womb of a serpent, which looks like the gateway of life in the woman. So we have sons that are born through the serpent of life. So on our crowns and on our heads, our central focus is that, the offspring that comes through the womb, the afterlife, those that are living after us, the future generation, what we're leaving behind for them. And not only that, to leave behind them, for them light, guidance, a bright future, a foundation to build upon, wisdom, enlightenment. So there's various different metaphors and entendres and meaning in these things, but we have been tricked into believing that knowledge is the root to our fall. But it's the third eye. It says, so when the woman saw, that's the first eye, the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, that's the second eye, and the tree desirable to make one wise. Wisdom is the third eye. And she took of the fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. Right? They became creative. They became self-sufficient. The fig leaves is very, very important because figs have a lot of different meanings. One, the relationship between the fig and the fig wasp, and the duties of the male fig as opposed to the purpose of the female fig. How the male fig chews or eats away out of the fig for the female and the offspring. and the males are born without antenna and wings. They're blind and flightless. They never see the outside of Babylon. But their duty is to make a way for the next generation. And so the females, they spend their lifetime inside the fig, gathering pollen, gold digging, filling their breasts with pollen. And this is a natural act of reciprocity. Because when she exits, right, she doesn't know the difference between the capital fig, the male fig, or the female fig. So it's kind of like a natural selection here. But when she enters, if it's a male fig, the shape of the organs inside the inverted flower, which we call the fig, it's perfectly designed for her to lay her eggs and give birth to a new generation of fig wasps. Her lineage, their lineage live on again. But that particular capital fig is cursed, right? It is infested. Can't eat capital figs. But the female fig has a long tube they call the stylus that she enters. And when she enters, the female fig wasp enters the stylus. It is so thin that her antennas detach and her wings detach. So she's unable to reverse, go backwards. It's only a one-way trip in. And she ends up getting stuck. And over time, the chemistry, the enzymes produced inside the female fig absorbs the pollen and absorbs the fig wasp to fertilize and spawn another generation of figs. So it's a give and take type situation here. So there's many different lessons to be learned from that, and Christ alludes to this in Matthew 21 when he curses the fig tree, and he gives you the keys to manifestation. You know, when he says, surely I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you will do not only what was done to the fig tree, but also if you say to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, it will be done. And whatever things you ask in prayer, believing, you will receive. So what was done to the fig tree was, it was cursed. But you can also bless with this power. And I'm just fast forwarding it, but I'm just showing you the fig tree. But it's also used in a very important way at the Revelations, where we conclude this. Because you've seen where we started the lesson at Genesis 2:10. And now in the last chapter of the Bible, right? i.e. Alpha and Omega, i.e. the beginning and the end, the first and the last, which is the Genesis and the Revelations. And if you don't believe that these two things are connected through that, then you see in the next sentence, in the next verse, it says, "Blessed are those who do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter through the gates into the city. For without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters and whoever loveth and practices or maketh a lie." People make lies. This is the reason why I said prove all things. Practice lies. So when I say I am the root and the offspring of David, I'm showing you the root and the offspring of David, a connection between these two, all of these. This is the root, and here's the offspring of the David. So the root, as you can see here, the root, and this is the offspring of David. So this is now the bright and morning star. You know, the bright and morning star. Let's look at that real quick. I mean, I have to go all the way to the end here, but here we're gonna go all the way to the end. But this is the bright and morning star. It's Series A, Series B, and I write a lot about that in my book. And I'm continuing to refine and update and upgrade my book. If you want to support this content, this is available for you to purchase and support through a very positive and productive means. But you see the towers of Giza, right? And you can call them towers of Cairo now. Cairo means master, all right? And these tombs are built in alignment to Series A and Series B star constellation. And the Series A is the bright star, right? And this Series B is the morning star. This is where the soul is thought to aspire to. It is the dark star, right? As in the dark skin, or the hidden Hideko, right? The hidden one, right? Out of Egypt I call my son, and he shall be called a Nazarene, right? So, what is it? Let's see, I think it's 2, right? Where it says, out of Egypt I call my son here. So the father is calling his son out from out of Egypt, the root, all right? And the chapter ends, well, he shall be called a Nazarene. He was taken back towards Judea, or towards the land of Israel. He was taken back north, and he was mixed. So you can see a father who is Egyptian, a mother who's a Nazarene. You see, the hen symbolizes the way that a woman protects her young, the divine feminine. Her focus is like, her life is like the hen, and she's willing to go to war with snakes and eagles and whatever to protect her children. And this is the throne on top of that lineage. So these have symbolism, and both of them, as you can see, have the uraeus on their crowns, right? And of course, you have an entity that is trying to prevent You have an entity that's trying to prevent the knowledge of this type of understanding, connection. This stuff is they are against it. And that's those who are outside, who loveth and practice a lie. But you see the connection between the Revelations and the Genesis. And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding from the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the middle of his street, on either side of the river, was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruit, each tree yielding its fruit every month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations, and there shall be no more curse. So the meaning of that is this whole thing has been about a curse. And it's just people don't know that that's what it's about. And you have to ask yourself, well, where is the curse? What is it about? What is it? What are they talking about? It's obviously, they just gave us the clue. The clue is the leaves of the tree. Notice it's its own sentence. So they talk about the tree of life, but the tree of knowledge and the tree of life are different. Right? The tree of life, right, which bore 12 fruit, each tree yielding its fruit every month. All right? That is specifically the papyrus. That's the papyrus. So if you look at the river, water of life, right? Clear as crystal, proceeding from the throne of God, you see? So in reality, what that looks like is coming out of the land of Egypt, coming out of the land of Israel. Here's another depiction here. You see it's full of life. You see the birds and the fish and the lords on their papyrus floats, right? With the ladies adorned. The male are protectors. They are playing a specific position, and the females, as you see, very feminine. But there's a system here, an order here. Then you see those working in the fields without the garments. You see they're small, as in young, and also subordinate. They're unlike these here who are dressed. And they're working in the garden. And what are they harvesting? The tree of life, which bears 12 manners of fruit, each fruit yielding every month. Every 30 days, the papyrus plant is harvested. It takes 30 days to grow it. And there's multiple uses for it. They use it to make papyrus, the world's first paper. They use it to make these boats. They use it to make ropes. They use it to make fragrances, spices. So papyrus was used for many different reasons. All right. But if you look closely at the map, you will see here is the throne of God. And this is the central connection between all of these three bloodlines. The Africans, the East African bloodline, the Hamites. Then you have the Shemites. And then you have the Japheth, right? The Germanic people and the coastland people here from Italy in the, so you have these three races forming a new world, a new nation, all right, based upon the foundations of the old kingdoms, of the old world. And this is predate Western civilizations. So that's what the Bible is. The Bible is really a new world, a new kingdoms, the new hemisphere being built off of these kingdoms. So they're telling us in the beginning, these kingdoms. This is all about building the kingdoms. You just go to Matthew's. This is why the parables have so much to do with the Virginians and, Matthew's 25, the Virginians, right? The kingdoms of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins, like Virginians, who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Now 5 of them, all right, but also it says the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country. See, a man traveling to a far country, like Christopher Columbus or Christopher Newport, right? And who entered Virginia with military-aged men who eventually, 2 years later, went to war with the Powhatans, who were the natives there. But these kingdoms, these parables are talking about the kingdom. And these are parables that we are supposed to understand to be able to survive and thrive in the kingdom. But the cure, the curse started in Genesis, in the Alpha, on the people who wore the Urias, but the Urias now cut off from their roots, cut off from the knowledge of themselves, cut off from their divinity, connection to the divine, and a new operating system, right? I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head and you shall bruise his heel. This is where it begins. So prove all things, and here's the proof. This is where you see those outside, right? The flaming sword, right? So the Lord said, behold, a man has become like one of us to know good and evil. Now, least he put out his hand and take also the tree of life and eat forever. And therefore the Lord God sent them out of the garden of Eden to till the ground from where he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed cherubim at the east of the garden of Eden with the flaming sword, which turned every way to guard the way of the tree of life. A flaming sword. That should sound familiar. To guard the way to the tree of life. They don't want you to know this is what your origins was. To keep you in the darkness. Keep you from intermixing, procreating. This is the flaming sword. But we don't know because we don't prove all things, which means to test, examine, and scrutinize everything submitted to be believed, which is the whole meaning of it. And they tell us that Thessalonians literally means the victory of falsity. The victory of falsity, which is the fact of being untrue, incorrect, or insincere. Untruthfulness. Falsehood. fictitiousness, inaccuracies. So this is the reason why we need to provide the proof. With that said, thanks for listening. Please subscribe to my channel. You can find my books and connect with me at illuminatednubians.com. Also blackswanradio.com. All right, you can preview the book. Purchase it, it's just $20. And what you will find inside this book, I guarantee, will open your eyes and blow your mind. And we break down what has been revealed to me and show you the research, show you the proof, so that you can see it for yourself and create the discussion that sparks the conversation, that open people's eyes and change how these stories are perceived in a more truer, higher detailed, and high definition. Till next time, keep the faith. Peace.